Well, one of the reasons for spiritual awakening are for you to connect to yourself and to our world once again, you see. It is a sort of a little reminder of where you came from, and you live in human worlds, you live in human society, and you carry on as you do. But some of you forget that there are other existences beyond your world, and we want you to know that they are there. So the reason for the spiritual awakening is the fact that spiritual awakening is not just associated with that, it is all connected with unconditional love as well as the connection with our world. So the spiritual awakening has many phases to it, you see. It has a test where you go through a particularly testing time of the dark time, and then from that you will go to many other phases during the spiritual awakening where you will question things and you will wonder what is happening to you. You will wonder the reasons why it has to happen, and you start to question all of that until you have a total spiritual connection with yourself. It is about going back within to yourself, you see. You will
Uh,
go through the maze of life and you will live a human existence, but then sometimes it gets a little too human and you seem to forget about your spiritual side of yourself. So many of you will experience different things with a spiritual awakening. Some of you will begin to perhaps see visions. Some of you will experience seeing different number sequences that will give you signs for other messages from the Spirit. There are many different ways to experience it. Some of you may experience vibration from within your being, which is where your body will vibrate. Many different ways to wake up spiritually. But the reason is that we have noticed in our world that you have all not been having time for one another, you see. You say, well, we are so busy with our lives, we don't have time to connect with each other. So this wasn't particularly done on purpose in order for people to suffer. Many people chose to go to the other side in mass, you see, for the reasons being that they also wanted to teach the earth about unconditional love, so they chose to go home in mass. And so you have what you call the mass exodus. And many people are passing to the spirit world each and every day, but nobody notices that. You see, they don't really have it on their news speaking, they don't really notice it. It is happening every second of every day. And there are incarnations happening every second of every day, but it is not particularly recorded for everyone to experience. It is just something that happens without you even notice it. But this had to come to a point where everybody would stop and take stock, and everybody would notice that something different was going on. The truths had to come out in your world, and they are going to come out. And there is going to be all of you coming together and being at peace with one another, and the earth actually being at peace itself, too.
okay, it's see you say about we need to obviously slow down a little bit. Is there any other reasons how we treat each other and
That is right. The way that you are perceiving life to be, the way that you are treating one another, yes, we see that there is a lot of negative going on in the world. And it has to have negative alongside positive in order for you to coexist together. So you see, sometimes the negative gets a little out of balance and it tends to try and go into the positive a little bit more and overtake it. So it needs rebalancing again, you see, and that is happening at the present time. But I should think that if you're all going to stop and experience something so profound all over the world, does that not tell you something? It is teaching you how to come back to your families, how to come back to yourself, and find unconditional love with all of them and each other.
okay, to reach a spiritual awakening, do we always have to go through a negative first, or what we perceive to be a negative?
Yes, you do. You go through what you call the dark day, you see. And many people will be tested in their lives before they have a spiritual awakening. They go through a dark period in their lives where they perhaps come to a dead end in their lives, as a full stop, and they don't know where they're going. They cannot find their path, and they look in all sorts of directions to find out where their self is going to be. But if they go within, it is already there. It's just a matter of knowing how to go within, isn't it? Just a matter of knowing what is around you, how to appreciate it, and how to love yourself.
Okay, do spiritual awakenings happen often, or is it just a once in a generation thing, or once every couple 100 years? Do that happen on a smaller scale as well?
It would happen on many scales. It would happen with an individuality. It would happen with a group of people. It could also happen in a great mass. So you see, not all viruses are about spiritual awakening. Some of them are just particular viruses that are able to evolve and travel from human to human. And unfortunately, it would take one's life, and others would survive. But there is something different about this one, isn't there? And many of you would perhaps have felt it. Some of you would be angry and bored and stay at home, and you would think, well, I want to get out. I want to go out. I'm human. I need to go outside. And you would say, well,
Yeah,
I feel a little bit trapped in here. But if you take stock and look at what is around you within your house, maybe you are on your own, or maybe you are with your families. You have time for each other now, don't you? You've all been complaining that you haven't had time. Look at the time you got now.
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of us are having a lot of time to ourselves at the moment to reflect. Is there any questions from people on the chat? We've got one here. Did the souls that are leaving now choose this before they incarnated?
Yes, they would have done. Every single soul that incarnates to this earth will choose the lifetime that they have, and then they will choose when they pass.